Right, let's look at why did the revolutions in Italy failed. The revolutions in 1848 to 49, why did they fail? Many questions usually ask about the failure of the 1848 revolutions. Overall, looking at at all the states, France, Italy, Germany, Austria, and Hungary. They would look at what the reasons why those revolutions failed. So right now I'm focusing on Italy. The reasons for the failure of these revolutions usually are almost the same throughout. We have reasons such as the failure by the revolutionaries to we have a unity of action. For example, when we're talking about France, the revolutionaries were not united to the extent that the conservatives who were leading the revolution had to set what was known as the Party of Order in June 1848, which crushed the other revolutionaries who had protested the banning of the national workshops. In Hungary, we talk about how the Magyars could not agree with the Croats, the Magyars wanting to be above the Croats and other ethnic groups. That lack of unity of action was actually paramount throughout Europe, and we are seeing it again happening in Italy, where there was a lack of unity of action between the states. If we are to look at a close examination, the revolutions within every state began not because of the desire for national unity, but over local issues. For example, if we look at the revolution that has to do with Piedmont, their desire was to annex Lombardy. And when we're now looking at Lombardy itself, the desire, the reason why they revolted had to do with the tobacco monopoly. When we look at Venetia, the reason why they revolted had to do with Manin's captivity. When we look at Sicily, the reason why they revolted had to do with hatred for Neapolitan oppression. So that unity of action between states lagged. It lagged. There was no unity. They didn't have one aim. They were not united by one aim. Now, cooperation between states was generally born out of necessity. They would just cooperate because it was necessary, not because they wanted to, but because it was necessary to cooperate. And this cooperation was often given in an atmosphere of mutual suspicion. Let's look at the situation where Charles Albert was leading troops that he himself distrusted. The troops from Naples distrusted the troops from Papal States. So there was no common aim. There was no common aim among the revolutionaries. And in many cases, once the revolutionaries had succeeded in overthrowing the absolute monarchy, where the absolute monarchy was in control, they could not agree on what they wanted to replace with it. For example, in Lombardy, there was an argument on whether to fight for a union with Piedmont or an independent Lombard republic. When we look at Sicily, a national guard was formed by leaders of the new constitution to make sure that the more radical revolutionaries did not get out of control. So we have the leaders of the revolution setting up a national guard to suppress other revolutionaries. So these conflicting, the lack of unity between states and the lack of common aims among the revolutionaries also led to the failure of the revolution. We also have a situation where outside forces would come in to assist those who would have been removed from power. At no stage during the end of the revolution was help for the cause offered by an international power. In actual fact, it was help for the autocratic rulers who were being removed by the revolutionaries. When the Pope was made to flee from Rome by Mazzini and Garibaldi, the French came in to assist the Pope and defeated the Roman Republic. So we have a situation where international situations would support the rulers, the autocratic rulers, at the expense of the revolutionaries. For example, in the case of the Pope, who was supported by France. Then we also have an issue of leadership. We had the Pope, we had Charles Albert, we have Mazzini. None of them was willing or able enough to lead the fight to free or unite Italy. So the Pope was not prepared to stand up against Catholic domination of Austria and France. Charles Albert was more concerned with a situation where Piedmont would be above other states. It was only Mazzini who was uh, attempting to unite both the south of Italy and the northern Italy, but he didn't have that capacity to lead and unite Italy. So this lack of proper leadership also led to the failure of the revolutions. So if you're asked about any question, if you're asked any question about the failure of the revolution, talk about leadership, you talk about lack of unity of action between the states, you talk about lack of common aim among the revolutionaries, you talk about international situation where you give an example of how the French assisted um, the Pope to return to his authority after he was pushed out by Mazzini and Garibaldi from Rome. So this is it on the failure of the revolution. If you have any questions, you need to ask so that we assist each other. The next part that we're going to be looking at is the German Revolution of 1848 and German unification. Stay tuned.